Hi, Fernando. So we're going to start with your task one today. This is the bar chart for the black and brown shoes. Why don't we get started with it straight away? The bar chart, usually we call them line graphs, bar charts, pie charts. So this should be a bar chart. The bar chart illustrates the sales of shoes in some countries of Europe during 2018. Shoes were made of two different colors of leather, black and brown. This essay will describe the main features and comparisons. Okay, you didn't have to have this line here. It's not an essay the way task 2 is. So essentially you just need one sentence, which is the introduction. And it should basically, you could have just really stopped here. In fact, what I would do is I would have condensed this even further so you would have only one sentence as your introduction. So my suggestion to you is something like the bar chart illustrates the sale of black and brown leather shoes in 9 European countries in 2018. Okay, and then overall, Hungary clearly was the country that had the highest level of sales, followed by Italy as the second. In contrast, Belgium and France had the lowest number of shoe sales over the period. Okay, when you do a task one for us, it's really important that you include the image of the chart or pie or graph or whatever it is so that I can refer to it. It's really important that I refer to it. I am not entirely sure that this is accurate. I think it might be, but it's not necessarily that Hungary had the highest or that Belgium and France had the lowest. But as far as I remember, Hungary had the highest black sales, the highest sales of black leather shoes. And then I think Belgium and France had the lowest of brown and black, respectively, something like that. But without having the chart here, it's difficult to remember. As far as their totals are concerned, I'm not 100% sure that this is accurate, what you've written. So that's why I would prefer this number one to be a little more specific. So black had the highest sales of black leather shoes, and whichever of the two, I don't know, had the lowest sale of brown. Okay, so that would have been fine. It is evident that Hungary was the country that purchased the most, not the most quantity, the highest quantity of shoes among the other countries. And the color of leather which people chose the most was black. Okay, fine. Oh, moreover, Italy was the second highest, you're missing a word here, buyer of shoes in 2018. They also preferred their shoes in black color over the brown color. We don't usually use the word color here, so they preferred their shoes in black over brown. That would have been better. On the other hand, Belgium had the least number of shoe sales, and they chose them in black. France got the lowest quantity of sales among other countries of Europe, such as UK, Ireland, Poland, Germany, and Holland, which got an average number of sales, which compared to the rest of the countries mentioned above. All right, so let's talk about, for me, what the biggest problem here is. There are a couple of big problems here. The first problem, which for me is the most obvious, is that there is zero data. We have absolutely no data. So without data, you cannot get over a 5 in task achievement, okay? You have to have some numbers. We have to have an idea of what the sales were here, okay? So you gave a 0 data here, and so that's not going to get you anything over a 5. The other thing you need to remember is that you had 9 countries to talk about, and I need to make sure that you mentioned at least by name the 9 countries. So let me see if I can do that really fast. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it looks like you mentioned them, so that's good. Without mentioning at least the names of the countries, you can't get anything over a 4. But in any case, we know that without data, you've already gotten a 5 for task achievement. I thought additionally that, again, in terms of task achievement, this wasn't really particularly descriptive. And I'm almost tempted to say that it would probably suffer in terms of coherence and cohesion as well, because the organization of your ideas wasn't particularly effective. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the best way to do this, of course, there are other ways, but one way that is very simple, very clear, and very efficient is to have one paragraph where you talk about the black leather shoe sales and one paragraph where you talk about brown. So for me, I would talk about, again, the way you did, Hungary, but I would say what that number was. And I would probably say something like 3 countries had over 100,000 sales of black leather shoes. More specifically, Hungary was the top seller with approximately 140,000, whereas Italy and then the other country, I can't remember what it was, also just over 100,000. Then I would say, in contrast, um, Belgium had the least number of black shoe sales at just over 5,000, I believe the number is something like that. The remaining countries, and I would name them, all had between 50 and 100,000 black leather shoe sales. And then I would do the same thing in a new paragraph with brown leather shoes. So you can see I'm focusing on the outliers. I'm focusing on the top numbers, focusing on the low numbers, and then the middle numbers I'm just kind of smushing together. But it is important that you give some numbers here. All right? So that's my feedback about your task 1. Remember to include the image. Remember to include some data in your description. So let's look at your task 2. You said here with your task, it's not actually task 1, this is task 2, the essay. Let's see what you wrote here. This is about fast food. And if it's replacing traditional food has negative impacts on families, community, or society and individuals. Again, remember to include the task here because I do like to refer to it. So let's see what you wrote. In some regions of the world, fast food is supplanting traditional dishes. This is negatively affecting families, individuals, and communities. Personally, I strongly agree due to the fact that fast food in general has many consequences for society. This essay will analyze the issues using examples to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay. It's fine on the whole. First sentence was fine. Last sentence was fine. I thought this was a little weird. The reason I say that is because you present this as fact and then you say, I agree with this fact. So that to me felt a little awkward. It would have made more sense to me if this had not said this is negatively affecting families, but if you had said, therefore, it is widely believed that this is negatively affecting, etc., then it would have made sense for you to say, I personally strongly agree. Do you understand what I mean? Because you were already presenting this as fact. So then saying that you strongly agree just felt really rather strange. Would have made more sense if you had presented this sentence as something which is believed, something that is discussed, something that is debated, and then said that, you know what, I agree with this. That makes more sense, okay? Let's move on. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that fast food cannot provide the right nutritional requirements for a healthy body. The principal reason behind this is that the majority of the ingredients to prepare fast food are artificial. They contain massive quantities, IES, of fat or have elevated levels of refined sugar. For example, recent empirical research by the WHO in Denmark has demonstrated that people between the ages of 50 and 60 who eat fast food at least once per day can increase up to 20% the risk of a heart attack. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that the replacement of traditional food by fast food could have negative effects on people's health. Okay, so are you talking here about individuals? It's not totally clearly stated. I would have liked it to be more clearly like, okay, as far as individuals are concerned, this. Okay? Because you do have to talk about these 3 elements here: families, individuals, and society. Let's see what you wrote in the other paragraph. On the other hand, traditional food is usually cooked at home, and the amount and quality of the ingredients are adapted to the budget of each family. In contrast, you need a T, fast food could be easily costly compared to traditional homemade food. This is largely because other people cook the food for us. It basically takes less time and effort to get it. All right, this is a little awkward grammatically. Other people cook the food, basically taking less time and effort to get it. That makes a little more sense. Then consuming fast food could have a big impact on the economy of families and society. For example, an extensive survey in California revealed that more than 80% of the inhabitants do not cook their own food, and they confess that they spend a huge part of their salary on fast food. Therefore, the consumption of fast food also represents an economic drawback. All right. I appreciate your effort here. I'm glad that you mentioned families and society, although it's just a mention and you really didn't totally convince me about this. Okay. So then my instinct was right that you're basically talking about individuals here, and here you're talking about families and society. I think you could have done a better job of talking about families and society. And one way you could have done it is by starting and saying that you were going to talk about families and society from the beginning of the paragraph. In other words, you could have had a clearer topic sentence here. Okay? So this sentence really doesn't, this here for the first sentence in your paragraph, it doesn't really give us a clear indication of what this paragraph is about. So that's the role of the topic sentence. It's supposed to essentially present the central idea of the paragraph. Okay? It's like a mini introduction to your paragraph. So I wanted this sentence to be far clearer so that I knew that this was going to talk about the negative impact of fast food on families and society. So, what could you have done here? Let's say you could have said something like, fast food does not only negatively affect individuals, but it also has a harmful impact on families and society. Okay? One reason for this is that fast food is quite costly compared to traditional homemade food. Um, And then this is largely because of not just the other people cook it, but it's also, all the infrastructure that's involved in these fast food restaurants. So, um, kind of like looking at it comparatively, fast food is far more expensive, therefore, making it have a negative effect on the family. Okay. Then you could have said, how does this affect society, though? You didn't really tell us that. That wasn't really clear. Maybe this is what you meant. But again, I didn't really feel like this is particularly convincing. So you needed to do something else to show us that this is all having a negative effect on society. I think one way to do that effectively is by kind of tacking on society here. You were talking about the risk of heart attack. So you could have also said that the um, the increase in health issues among the population resulting from fast food consumption clearly have an impact on society as more workers take sick leave. And this also creates a strain on the insurance system and, as a result, the economy of an entire nation. So that would have been a convincing way to talk about society here. Okay. But this wasn't really a convincing argument here. Okay. So I hope that gives you some ideas about how you could incorporate all the things. I love that you tried to do it because I got to tell you, a lot of people don't do this. You did talk about individuals, you did talk about families, you tried to talk about society. It didn't really quite work. I didn't really agree with this on the one hand. On the other hand, we usually use this when we're talking about two opposite sides. So, for example, if you have to talk about the advantages and disadvantages, then it makes sense to use on the one hand, on the other hand. Here, you didn't have that. You were essentially talking about the negatives. So, that's one side of the argument. But the negatives of, like I said, these three things: individuals, families, and society. So, this probably wasn't such a great linker here. Let's take a look now at your conclusion. To conclude from the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that the fact that fast food is replacing traditional food. Wait a minute. I firmly believe that fast food replacing traditional food represents, in general, a negative change. That would have been better. In the future, it is predicted that the number of people who consume fast food daily will increasingly grow. Okay, that's fine. Grammatically, you had some issues here. I mean, I could understand what you're trying to say, but it did create some issue. I had to fix it around a little bit. So I hope you have a good idea about what some of the areas that need to be improved in this essay are. For me, they were task achievement, and then to a lesser degree, but still important, of course, is grammar. So those are the things that I really want you to look out for when you write your next essay, okay, and your next set of essays. We also talked considerably about task one, and that task achievement was a problem there as well. So just be on the lookout for those things. Try to overcome some of these weaknesses with your next set. Okay? So I'll wait for that next set. Looking forward to it, and I want to wish you lots and lots of luck.